All right, factoring with just the GCF. What does GCF mean? Greatest common factor. That can be a number or a letter. A lot of times when we factor and we say, okay, factor by GCF, factor by grouping, factor by this, you guys are pretty good at it. You've seen it a bunch. We're going to see it a lot more. It's when you're given an equation and it's just like factor completely, where you have to take out the GCF, then factor a trinomial, then do a special pattern. That's when you guys kind of get a little lost. So we're going to take each one every day separately. Then we'll practice for a day or two where it's all of this stuff. So you need to get into the habit of the first thing, the first step that you do when you're looking at a factoring problem, you say, what is the GCF? Every time. Even if you don't know if there is one or two, you have to ask yourself that question. GCF means greatest common factor. Okay, write that down. I know you know it. Just write it. Greatest common factor. And it can be a letter or what? Number. Or a number. It can be both. You always want to take out the highest number, the biggest number that they have in common, and also the most amounts of letters that you can. I'll show you what I mean by that in a second. Now, some of you turned your homework in, and it was just a list of answers. I was pretty lenient with the first homeworks, but from now on, guys, you have to show work. You cannot just be like, oh, I did it in my head. Some of this stuff is a little more basic than others, but I have to see what you did in your head. So I'll show you a model for you, exactly what I expect to see on your homework when you turn it in, hopefully before the class period ends. All right, first one. God bless you. 8 plus 6x to the fourth. What should we do first when we see a problem like this?
Break it down.
Okay, we're going to break it down. Is this written in standard form? No. Go ahead and rewrite it in standard form. How would you write that? 6x to the fourth, what? Plus 8. Okay, perfect. Now I look at 6x to the fourth and a positive 8. What do they have in common?
2.
Right? Both of them are divisible by 2? You guys agree? Mm-hmm. All right, so watch. This is how I want you to show me your work, because a lot of times you guys will do this. You'll divide by 2, but then you forget to write it out in front. That 2 is still there. You just moved it somewhere else. So I want to see you put it out in front of your parenthesis. What is 6 divided by 2? 3, so 3x to the fourth, plus, what's 8 divided by 2? Can I do anything else? Can I break this down anymore? I'm not solving, there's no equal sign, so you don't have to set equal to 0 or anything like that, but this is the factored form because we took out the common factor that they had between the two. Does that make sense, everybody? All right, so if I come now here to number 3, 4n to the 9th power plus 12n. What number do they have in common? 4. I can take out a 4, correct? What else can I take out? N. They both have an n. So if I divide both terms by 4n, what's 4 divided by 4? Cancels out. What is n to the 9th divided by n to the 1st? N to the 8th. Good. If you're dividing, same basis, you subtract exponents. And then what's positive 12 divided by 4? And then what happens to my n's? They cancel out. So that's what we're left with. 5 is a tad bit different. How's 5 a little bit different?
Negative.
There's a negative. If your expression is written in standard form, which this is, and you lead with a negative. When I say lead with a negative, do you see how this first term has a negative? You want to factor out the negative. So I look here. What number do 12 and 3 have in common? 3, right? So since we lead with a negative, I want to divide out a negative 3. So divide here by negative 3 and here by negative 3. A negative divided by a negative, guys, is a what? Positive. So I have what? 4a, right? Then what? Plus 1. Good. 3 divided by 3 doesn't just cancel out and becomes 0. It becomes 1. So make sure you guys are on top of that, please. What about 7? What do they have in common? Okay, n, agreed. How many n's do they have in common?
3.
I can take out at least 3 of them. Good. What about number-wise?
4.
Is it 4? Is it 6? What is it?
4.
4. Does 6 go into 16?
No.
No, so I'm going to just use 4n cubed. So 12 divided by 4 is 3. N to the fifth divided by n cubed is what? N squared, thank you. And then I have plus. What's 16 divided by 4? 4. What happens to n cubes?
They cancel.
They cancel. So there's my answer. All right, look at number 9. What kind of a nomial do I have for number 9? It's a trinomial. All right, 9 always when we get to this, and we'll get to this in a few days, you guys would multiply a times c, right? See what numbers multiply to give you the last number, add to give you the middle. But you have to first ask yourself, is there a GCF? Is there a letter and or a number that I can take out of all 3 of these terms?
Yes.
What? Good. So if I take out a 5, I have k squared minus, what's 40 divided by 5? 8, okay, 8k. And then what's 10 divided by 5?
2.
Plus 2. Now later on, you guys are going to say, well, can I break that down anymore? Does anybody remember how to break down a trinomial like that?
Isn't it like k minus and then there's like another parentheses?
All right, so you'd say what times what could give me a positive 2 when I multiply, but a negative 8 when I add, and there isn't any. So this is it. This is factored. This is as much as it's going to go. If there was an equal sign, they want you to solve it. We'd use the quadratic formula. We'll get to that later. I don't want you guys to worry about that right now. But you have to get in the habit of the first thing you do is find the GCF. You have to factor out the GCF first. It makes your problem a lot easier. Let's look at 11. What do you guys notice about 11? It does have a negative, good. But is it in standard form? Let's rewrite it in standard form first. So I have 50n cubed plus 60n squared minus 60. Now, is there a common number or letter that I can take out of here? What number?
10.
10. Right? If I divide everything by 10, I'm left with 5n cubed plus what? 6n squared minus what? 6. How come I couldn't take an n out? Good. The negative 60 doesn't have one. Good. It has to be in every single term in order for you to factor it out. What do you guys notice about 13? Is it in standard form?
Yeah.
It is. It leads with a what? A negative. So you want to take out a negative factor. What number goes into both 36, 12, and 27?
8. 6. 12. 2. You're right.
Okay, I got 6, 8, 12. 6 goes into 36 and 12, but not 28. Right?
I knew it.
2 goes in, yes. But is there a bigger number? 4. 4. 4, 4, 4. We're going to take out a negative 4. Negative 4. It's all right. Negative 4. What's negative 36 divided by negative 4?
9.
Positive 9. So 9n cubed. What's a negative 12 divided by negative 4? Positive 3n. What's a negative 28 divided by negative 4?
Plus 7.
Plus 7. I know some of you are thinking, hold on a sec, I don't like to write the negative underneath. Okay, I'm just trying to remind you, a lot of us made silly mistakes yesterday on negative signs. We were a little careless. I got a lot of this. What's the answer to this?
Positive 49.
Positive 49, okay? What's the answer to this? Positive 121. I got at least, I would say at least 40 people told me that this was 14 and that was 22. Everybody in here knows what 7 squared is, but you just weren't thinking. All right, a lot of that happened with negative signs. Guys, there is a huge difference between a negative 3n and a positive 3n. I can't just give you credit because I knew what you meant, so just make sure you're careful. Yes, ma'am. No, good question. I took out a negative simply because it led with a negative. If everything else behind it was positive, that's okay. It would just change the signs of the other two. But if your highest exponent, the highest degree, leads with a negative, you want to take it out.
So if it doesn't lead with a negative and then everything else does a negative?
That's okay. That doesn't matter. If it like here, let's just change this for a second because it's not going to matter. Change this and change this to negatives. Good questions. So I have negative, negative, right? What do these three terms have in common? 9 goes into 63, 9 goes into 81, 9 goes into 18. Good. Can I take out a variable? No. So I'm just going to take out 9. I'm going to take out positive 9, Isa, because 63 is positive. If your leading term, when it's written in standard form, is positive, you take out a positive factor. If it's negative, you take out a negative. So watch, when we divide everything by 9, we have 63 divided by 9 is good, 7n cubed, minus 81 divided by 9 is 9, and then 18 divided by 9 is 2. Yep. If you lead with a negative, factor out a negative. If you lead with a positive, factor out a positive. Yes, ma'am. Sure. All right, 17. The rules don't change just because now we have more than one variable. Just look at everything independently. Look at the numbers first, then look at your A's, then look at your B's. Negative 24, positive 36, negative 60. What number goes into all three of those? 12. Very good. 6 does, but 12 is bigger. Since I lead with a negative, I'm going to take out a negative 12. So a negative 12 I'm going to put out in front. Now look at the letters. I have 2 A's in the first one. I have an A in the second term and an A in the third term. So I can take out at least one what? One A. Good. What about my B's? Does everything have a B? No. So you can't take it out. So let's just simplify. Negative 24 divided by negative 12 is 2. If I have A squared divided by A, what does that leave me with? 1A. Good. And then I have my B squared. Good. 36 divided by negative 12 is negative what? Yep. And what happens to my A's? They cancel out, so I have just B. And then a negative 60 divided by negative 12? Plus 5. And then what happens to my A's? They cancel. Good. And there we go. All right, let's go to the next page. I'm going to do the same thing. Go right down the left-hand side, and then you guys can finish. You'll have plenty of time. You can get this done, get it turned in before we're done. Before class is over. No, I told you it's due tomorrow morning, but you'll have plenty of time to work, so unless you really want homework. Okay, we're leading with a negative. What can I take out of both 12 and 16? Negative 4, right? I'm going to take out a negative 4, so when I divide by negative 4, negative 12 divided by negative 4 is 3b, yes? Negative divided by negative is a positive 4. I'm doing the odds with you. You guys are expected to do all of the evens. Yeah. And turn this in. It should be completed. All right. What do we have in common here? What can we take out? What kind of a 4? We should take out a negative 4 because it leads with a 4. What else? An x. Just one. So negative 4x. Negative 4x. Negative 4 divided by negative 4 is 1. Then I have x cubed divided by x gives me x squared. Good. What's negative 16 and negative 4? Gives me a positive 4. What happens with my x's? Guys, can you factor that anymore?
Yeah.
Is it the difference of perfect squares? Is x squared plus 4 the difference of perfect squares? What does difference mean? It would be x plus 2x minus 2 if it was the difference. Is that the difference? No. This is a plus sign. If it was x squared minus 4, then it would be x plus 2x minus 2. But it's not the difference of perfect squares. It's a plus. So this would be it. You cannot do anything else. You guys are going to run into that when we factor completely. You got to make sure that you pay attention to that. You can't just make it x plus 2 because that's not what it is. We'll talk more about that. All right, what do we have in common here? B squared. So I'm going to take out the b squared. So I'm left with what inside? 2b. to be what?
Minus 3.
Minus 3. Good. Very good. R to the fourth plus r squared. What do we have? Take out r squared. Good. So if I divide both terms by r squared, r to the fourth divided by r squared gives me r squared. Good. To the second. Plus, what's r squared divided by r squared? 1. Guys, it does not cancel out and just go away. Anything divided by itself is 1. So make sure you are paying attention to that. Questions? Oh, we got a long one. What do you notice about 21, 7, and 49? Okay, 7, agreed. X cubed, good.
Cubed.
The same thing you said.
Oh, cube is square.
No. You're fine. What's 21 divided by 7? 3, good. X to the ninth divided by x to the third. We subtract our exponents. We get x to the sixth, good. Plus, what happens to my 7s? They cancel. So x to the fifth.
X squared.
Good, good, good. And then 49 divided by 7? 7. What happens with the cubes? Good. Good job. How many of you remember this from last year? Okay, good. Not even that you mastered it. That's fine, just as long as you remember it, and that's half the battle. All right, are we written in standard form in number 11?
Yes.
Yes. So if I lead with a negative, what should I do?
Divide by negative.
I should take out a negative. What am I going to take out? A negative what? Negative 3. Good. Question was, do I have to take out the negative? If you just took out the 3 and we're left with negative 2n squared and then plus 3n and then minus 3, you'd still get points off because you still have that negative here that you have to bring outside.
So you don't want to have a negative in
You don't want to, because like when we get to a question like this, like negative x squared plus, 2x minus 1, you don't ever want to have to factor when it's like this, the 2 parentheses. You don't want to have to factor when there's a negative out in front. Good question, though. So we'll take out our negative 3. Can I take out an n as well?
Yes.
I can't, because not everything has an n. So negative 6 divided by negative 3 is 2. So I have 2n squared. Positive 9 divided by negative 3? Minus 3n. And then a negative divided by negative is a positive 3. Good. Now, like I said, later on when we factor completely, you're going to take out the GCF and then you're going to say, okay, can I factor more? Some of you are going to say, how do I know? You guys have to get into the habit and you have to understand how to factor trinomials and stuff. And we're going to work through it, I promise. But you're going to have to practice. All right, what's going on 13? Okay, I could take out a negative 2, agreed, and an n cubed. Perfect. Take out the negative because we lead with a negative. 2 goes into all 3 of them, and I have at least 3 n's in each term. So, all right, so we have negative 2 here. So then when we divide out, negative 20 divided by negative 2 is... So negative 20 divided by negative 2 is 10. N to the fifth. Say it again.
N to the second.
Yes, n to the second. You're right. So now a negative 10 and a negative divided by negative 2 gives me positive what? 5n. Good. And then my negative 2 and positive 2?
Minus 1.
Minus 1 because my n cubes cancel. Good. Thank you, guys. All right, we see big numbers. There's no reason to freak out. Just look. 25, 40, and 15. What number goes into all 3 of those? I can 5. And it's going to be a negative because we lead with a negative. Good. So I'm going to take out a negative 5. As far as my variables go, what would it be? X squared. Good. Very good. Negative 25 divided by negative 5 is positive 5. X to the 8th divided by x squared gives me x to the 6th. Good. 40 divided by negative 5 is negative 8. X to the 7th divided by x squared is x to the 5th, right? And then 15 divided by negative 5 is negative 3. And what happens to my x squareds? They cancel. Yep. All right, 17. What do you guys notice about 17?
It's not standard.
Okay, I understand why you say it's not in standard form, because you have y to the second and then y to the ninth. Whenever you have a combination of letters together, like x's and y's or different letters, they always put them in alphabetical order. So alphabetically, which comes first, x or y? X. So this is x to the first, x to the first, x to the first, correct? So technically this is in standard form. If it was x to the third here, then you would move this one to the front. But since it's not, since they're all just to the first power, then it's fine the way it's written. So then you can just leave your answer in the same order. Okay, that's fine. What number can I take out of all of these? 2. And what letter? An x. So 2x. Divide by 2x, 2x, 2x. 18 divided by 2? 9. What happens to my x's? They cancel. What's a negative 6 divided by 2? Negative 3. And then what happens to my x's? So I have y squared. And then 10 divided by 2 is 5. What happens to the x's? And then I have y to the 9th. Okay. So guys, do you see the little bit of work that I show on each problem? Right? I understand that a lot of you can do this in your head, but I don't want you to, because when we get to bigger problems and we get to problems that have more steps, you can't do it all in your head. So take the little bit of time, show me your work like we did here. It takes 2 seconds, but that is what I'm expecting to see when you submit your homework. Does everybody understand? Okay.